I've got to admit, I didn't think I'd make it this far. But now that I have, I might as well win.
It's here. Welcome to the CGT draft analysis. Oh, bitch. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. This league, for those who don't know, who didn't see the announcement trailer, is comprised of some of the greatest battlers of Gen 8, period. Everyone has won trophies. Everyone has won, has had so many Wi-Fi accomplishments, and it's crazy that I'm part of this 14, partially because I made these 14, but it is very cool to be still in this great thing. I'm super happy that the entire plan came together to have this great league, and I hope you all enjoy it. I really do. This has been kind of in the works for me for a while, and I'm so happy with the group that we have. So please go check out all the other coaches as well. They'll be uploading draft analysis today just as much. If you missed the draft stream that was on my channel the other day, please go check that out as well. I had Jack and Galadite with me, which is super cool. It actually hasn't happened yet, so if that changes, that would be kind of awkward. But as of right now, it's Jack and Galadite. Hopefully that's who it was on the draft stream yesterday. I'm sure they did a phenomenal job, past me says, as well as myself. Hopefully I did an okay job too. Okay, why am I talking about myself like this? I'm sorry, I'm just so excited, I'm so flustered, and I'm really excited about the draft that we have. One of my favorite drafts. I think we've had 4 drafts now on the channel for Wi-Fi. This is definitely, maybe not my favorite, but might be second favorite, and I think I'm going to do pretty well with it. So I'm excited. I think that it's going to be a super, super tough league. I mean, I could go 2-7, I can go 7-2. It's just that everyone is so close in skill, you just have no idea. So that's going to make for tight, exciting battles, and I hope you all stay tuned for this entire league. Watch all the coaches' channels. It's going to be a phenomenal, phenomenal time. So yeah, let's get into what we drafted. Okay, perfect. Voila. This is our draft. We are doing it slacking style again because I don't like going pick by pick. Instead, you are going to look at the draft holistically, and we had the option to draft between 10 and 12 Mons. I ended up going with 12. That wasn't something that I was set on at the very start, but I do like having more Mons than less, so I'm perfectly okay with this. I can tell you that I led with Landorus Necrozma. I led Landorus in the first pick, and I kind of just picked it because it was the best thing that was there. I know there was like Torn available, other things, so I didn't want to repeat anything I had already used. So Landorus seemed pretty solid. I'm usually super particular about getting hazard control, about getting momentum, about getting a good ground type right off the bat. Landorus check boxes all of those things, which kind of let me toy around in a little bit more stress-free way for the rest of the draft following. So I liked it. I definitely think that Landorus is going to be a great first pick. It can do a lot of things like Earthquake and Swords Dance and setup, but it can also be kind of a bulky mon, a support mon, slow pivoter. It really has so many different options. It can be defensive, especially defensive, physically offensive, especially offensive. It has so many different things. It holds both Choice Band and Choice Scarf super well, and could run Double Dance. I mean, the versatility is great. So what I want to do with the rest of this draft is I want to draft Mons of various roles that allow me to use Lando in a more versatile way, so it isn't forced into one particular position every single game. And 2, I want to sort of increase my number of pivoters, as well as my number of breakers that come in against the things that Lando brings out. So that is kind of what my thoughts were there. And yeah, the second pick was Necrozma. Necrozma does none of those things I just said, but it's a fucking Necrozma, and it came to my pick 2, and I was talking to Shuckle King, and Shuckle King was like, fuck Synergy, just like pick Necrozma. I was like, alright, sure, I'll pick Necrozma, even though I didn't really fully see how it fit at the time. Now looking at the entire draft in total, I love how it fits, right? Because it's a bulky psychic that can, again, put itself offensively or defensively anywhere on this entire draft. Because I already have offensive and defensive pieces, I can use it more freely as a setup sweeper, as a bulky mon, or as anything like that. Both Lando and Necrozma I love here. If I could take them out of the picture, I still feel like I fill all the roles to the rest of my mons. So basically putting them back in allows me to have a very sort of mobile, free, whatever I want to do with them forms of Landorus and Necrozma, which I really, really like. So that is kind of Necrozma. There wasn't really much beside it other than I thought it looked good, and it's a bulky psychic, and eventually you look for a bulky psychic, so why not get Necrozma now? So, nice pick. Weavile was the next pick. This was a little bit more planned with the Landorus. Things that usually come in against Landorus are bulky grasses, sometimes flying types, things like that. Depends what. But I figured that Weavile was nice to pressure things that Landorus pivoted out on. It was also nice to pressure certain ghost types or certain psychic types that are just there. Knocking off things against Landorus and Necrozma is also super nice because just the knowledge of like losing Scarfers or losing resist berries or anything like that that can deal with their extremely powerful offense is super great. Weavile also just gives me speed right off the bat, right? Because I don't want to be like scrounging and getting like Talonflame or Boltund at the end of this draft. I want to be able to have that high tier revenging capability as soon as I possibly can. So that was the other reason I grabbed Weavile as early as I did. I'm super happy it lasted around 3. Keldeo was the next pick. Keldeo I chose because I thought it paired well with Weavile. Similar to Landorus, it baits out the bulky grasses and it takes that role away from Landorus. It doesn't need to be some kind of bait pivot mon. It can be a setup mon as well. It baits out those bulky grasses that Weavile can take advantage of, and it baits out those bulky waters as well that currently I don't have a lot to deal with, but it works in the other sense of it in that since I have a few things, Weavile, Keldeo, Landorus, that bulky waters all may want to come in against, just having more and more of those just puts extra pressure on a certain water type that's being brought against me. For example, if my opponent has a Primarina, and they want that to switch into both Keldeo and Weavile, and to an extent maybe even Landorus once or twice, it just can't do that all at once. So just more and more offensive pressure against water types is also a great option. But it gives me more pivoting, it fills that speed gap, and it gives me a special breaker, which again takes that roll off into Necrozma. Necrozma can now be a Dragon Dance mon, or it can now be a defensive sort of status spreading mon, because now my special breaker is Keldeo. Necrozma doesn't feel forced to be in that special breaker role anymore, which is awesome. Next mon I did was Skarmory, which was a little bit more defensive of a pick because I felt that I needed a steal pretty clearly based on my weaknesses and resistances and such. And I figured that I really wanted to take hazard pressure off of Landorus. So I ended up going with Skarmory. I am kind of familiar with it. It's something that I've used before, and a lot of people complain about being too passive. I've never had that issue with Skarmory personally. I know other people have, including my friend like Dr. Slacking, for example. Didn't really like Skarmory because he thought it would be too passive on this sort of very offensive looking team. But I don't know, I've just used it in a way between having attack investment and Brave Bird and Whirlwind that has made it so it isn't as passive as people sort of claim it to be. And I've used it multiple times, and I really don't feel like it is that passive. So I like because it gives me Spikes. Spikes is better than Stealth Rocks this gen. I like it because it gives me a mon with recovery outside of Necrozma. It could be a bulkier mon, takes the pressure in Necrozma to be a bulkier mon. It doesn't have to be a bulkier mon now that I have Skarmory to be able to take on certain mons. It gives me a grass resist. It gives me resist to all these typings that I don't currently have resist to, which I like a lot. So Skarmory works really well on this team. I don't see myself playing in a stally way with Skarmory. I see myself playing in a way where I get it in against some of its checks, get up a spike, and then get off a hit or switch out and rinse and repeat that process and play it in a more offensive way that way. Next mon is Miltank. This is where the team kind of takes a shift to a more balanced draft on average. I am very familiar with Miltank as well, and I like Miltank because it is that status spreader option. It is something that can heal Bell and Cleric things off of Necrozma and Landorus, which is super great. And it gives me another rocker to take pressure off of Skarmory and to take pressure off of Landorus. And it also gives me a ghost resist so that I don't have to pick up like another dark or something, or like pressure for Spectres on like fucking Weavile for some reason. Miltank, generally speaking, I think does a great job on this team. It can just do a lot of things. It can either just chip things down with Body Slam, S-Toss, and just be a general nuisance, which gets things in range of Weavile, Keldeo, etc. Or it can be a supportive mon that, statuses things and gets stuff in range like that. Additionally, since I have one of the best sort of beaters of ghost types, and like that, I mean, I know I get scrappy, but even though I have one of the best, listen to me, even though I have one of the best beaters of ghost types in Weavile, and I have some of the best beaters of steel types in Landorus and Keldeo to an extent, I think steel and ground types, at least I wanted to build this in such a way, steel and ghost types rather, kind of sometimes have a hard time coming against this draft in total. So I could bring Cursed Miltank with a single stab or something in certain instances, and potentially call a certain steel type or a certain ghost type not coming, or if a ghost type does come, I can run Scrappy, like whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I just think that my team does a good job at beating the things like steel types that Miltank struggles with, which is super cool. Which is why I think Miltank is a solid sort of pick on this team. Aromatisse I fucking hate. I don't want Aromatisse on this team, but I have to have Aromatisse on this team because it gives me a Wish Passer, which is nice. I think Wish is like completely overrated in draft. I've never Wish Passed like once in my life, but it's more so because I need the fairy, and more so because I think that it will actually be okay on this draft. It just makes the draft a little bit more... It just makes the recent 3 picks seem kind of bleh, but I like what Aromatisse does on this draft. I've never actually used it before, and I know it has like offensive potential. It's just the coverage for me that makes me a little confused and unsure, but if I don't like it, I'll trade it for another fairy, but for now I think it's going to work pretty well, partially because it is another bulkier mon, a bulkier fairy that doesn't get taunted, unlike Skarmory and Miltank, so having that option as a defensive choice is super cool for me. I'm going to hop down to Dragalge now, and come back to the other ones in a second. Dragalge fits this team so well. I think 10 is a bit pricey for it, but if it fits, it fits, right? And I think it does. I wanted to have a physically defensive mon in Skarmory, but I wanted to also have a specially defensive mon. And I looked at the team, and Dragalge does that for me. I can use it as a specially defensive mon that soaks up those sort of elemental typings, right? Like electrics and fire hits and things like that. That's something I don't have a lot for right now. So having something that soaks up those hits like that, I like it a lot. And in addition, it gives me a slow pivot in flip turn, which I only have fast pivots as of right now. And it gives me T-Spikes, New Ground Poison. But most importantly, I think it does core extremely well with my top 4 picks. Like when we're talking about baiting grasses out, nothing takes advantage of those grasses better on my team than Dragalge. And Dragalge, honestly, just like, if my team is really going to force like physically defensive mons, like Landorus and Weavile are going to force that, they might even come physically defensive for Keldeo's Sacred Sword. That means I'm hopefully dealing with less Assault Vests and less specially defensive mons, and Dragalge could just fucking drop Dracos. So that's also very cool, and I like that a lot. And I really like what Dragalge does for this team. From a pivoting perspective, from a breaking perspective, I really think it's all around, and I think it's a mon that I could be super versatile with this season, which will allow me to, you know, be very unpredictable in my builds. So I like that for Dragalge a lot. Rotom-Fan I picked purely as a comfort pick. I should have picked an electric type that resisted electric, because kind of weak to electric right now, but I didn't, because I love Rotom-Fan. And the reason I love Rotom-Fan is I don't fucking know. I just always use it. Whenever I use it well, and I know that, and I want to bring my best into this league and bring what I know I use well into this league. So that's why I have Rotom-Fan. I need an electric type. I know it's a 3rd flying, but look, I don't think either of my flying types effectively use Flying Stab, and I wanted something that did effectively use Flying Stab. I also wanted something that resisted ground, because I only have Landorus and Skarmory right now, so I want another one. But generally, it gives me another pivoter. It fills a nice speed gap between Necrozma and Landorus. It does a lot for me here, and I think that give me another Defogger is super nice too, to take pressure off of Landorus and Skarmory. So I like what Rotom does. Its dual stab is fucking nightmarish to switch into. It absolutely is. I don't know why this thing gets tiered so low all the time. I mean, I tiered it low in this league because that's what it normally is tiered, and I picked it up pretty late. So yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty good mon, and I'm going to enjoy using it because I fucking love using it. I bring it pretty often. I probably shouldn't say that in a draft analysis for people scouting me, but like, last time I drafted it, I believe I brought it to like 80% of my games. So we'll see if that happens this draft as well. I don't know. Blossom. Blossom's interesting. Blossom is there is a 1,000 arrows resist. Also, there's just a grass type in general to soak up things like Scalds, which I don't have great Scald switch-ins right now, outside of like Aromatisse, perhaps. I like Blossom more than other grass types. I was looking at Leafeon, I was looking at Lilligant, I was looking at Lurantis, but I like it because it has a pivot option in Baton Pass. I know Leafeon does too, but it's a special attacker, so it takes those Scalds better. And I think that with Moonblast as coverage, it's a better way to beat things like Dragon types and alternative types that I struggle with, whereas Leafeon's coverage is like knockoff, which isn't that great. So I like Blossom a lot. It's another mon I have super comfort pick with, and even though it's not in the logo, it is a Strength Sap mon, thus it is kind of a mascot pick. So, plus Vileplume, Blossom, we're all part of the same family. Last two mons, Magmar and Mareanie. Don't really have a lot to say about these. I had 3 points left, didn't know what to do. I didn't have a fire type, I didn't have a bulky water. Not that these two spectacularly fill those two roles, but I did sort of just say, okay, if my opponent is very fire weak, I want to be able to have good fire type. 1 point Magmar did that job for me. And, Fears of Belly Drum, an extra priority in Mach Punch. Like, it gives me something at least, whereas most other 1-pointers didn't give me much. Mareanie gives me a T-Spiker that isn't as offensive, as well as a bulkier water that can take on certain mons pretty effectively with regen and all that. I don't know when I'll bring these two. I might not. But having them in the back is better than not having them in the back. So yeah, I like them a lot, and I think that, you'll probably see them once or twice this season, I'd hope. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But that is the team. Let me know what you think of it in the comments section. It is a super, super tough league, but it is going to be a very, very exciting league. And I am so excited to play, regardless of how the wins go, regardless of how the losses go. You're not going to find competition like this anywhere, anytime soon for a while. And I don't think you've seen competition like this, in a long, long time either in the Wi-Fi scene. So hopefully you all enjoy this season. I put a lot of effort into making it happen, so I appreciate all the viewership, all the love, all the support. Please go follow the other 13 coaches, follow all their games, and follow, their draft analysis as well. So see you all in week 1. All right, see ya.